That almost made me cuss. Hey y'all, jambalaya crawfish pie. I'm not making jambalaya, but I am making crawfish pie today, and it's not hard at all. You can make a large, like a full size pie, or you can make little hand pies. It's basically just my crawfish etouffee recipe, but I am going to be using a little bit more roux to make it thicker, and I'm going to be adding heavy cream to it. For the dough, it's just my cream cheese dough that I've done videos on that when I made little mini meat pies. So it's just my cream cheese dough, but I am going to be adding a little shredded cheese to the dough. So it's really easy to make. It does take a little time, but it's really good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my roux going. I'm going to mix my oil and my flour in my pot. And while that starts to heat up, I'm going to chop up my large onion and, of course, some green onions. Okay, y'all, so I've got this new camera stand, and it flops around and does all kind of crazy stuff. So if it starts like sliding to one side, then just ignore it, okay? All right, so I've got 1/3 cup of flour and 1/3 cup of oil in my pot. I whisk it together to begin with, and then I usually switch to just a flat roux spoon. I usually use 1/4 cup of oil and 1/4 cup of flour for just my regular etouffee. But I want it thicker since we're making a pie, and I'm also going to be adding cream to it. If you're not used to making a roux, I would take it low and slow and babysit it until you get the hang of it, and you know how fast you can cook it and how long you can leave it. For me, I put it in there, turn it on like medium, maybe about medium, and I just leave it. I go chop up my onions, and then I come check on it. When it first starts to turn colors, that's when I turn my heat down and I really start to pay attention to it. But like I said, if you're not used to making roux, just take it low and slow, just so you don't burn it. So while this is heating up, I'm going to chop up a large yellow onion, 1 bunch of green onions, and I'm going to peel 4 cloves of garlic. Okay, so I'm seriously fighting with this new camera stand. It's enormous, and I'm not sure what to do with it yet. But I got my large yellow onion and my green onions chopped and 4 cloves of garlic peeled. Now, see, this hasn't even started changing colors. It's okay. I've got it on a little above medium, so it's all right. I've got something else going right here for for crawfish bites. Anyways, all right, so I'm gonna talk about the crawfish for a minute. Louisiana crawfish, you need to check, make sure that they are Louisiana crawfish. Even, you know, some Southeast Texas crawfish. But the ones from Spain and China, they do have a different flavor. I promise you, I've bought them on accident, and there is a different flavor. These are more expensive, but they're better. You could also use shrimp in place of this, okay? If you're doing etouffee, just use whatever size shrimp. I like big shrimp in my shrimp etouffee. If you're making the pie, I would use the smaller shrimp. But anyways, so I've got a pack of crawfish, and what I do is I'm going to cut them open, and I'm going to let them drain, because I want to get all of that fat, all that liquid that it's in, all that fat. I'm going to drain that off, so we can let that cook down first with all of our onions and stuff. Okay, so just gonna set it over a bowl like this and let all that fat drain out while I wait on the roux. Alright, we're just gonna let these cook down. Now, I know I've said this in plenty of my other videos, but just in case you're new or forgot, I know most people, when they think of Louisiana or dishes, they think of cooking with the Holy Trinity: onion, bell pepper, and celery. And parts of Louisiana, they do use that, but then there's other parts that don't put the celery or even the bell pepper in it. Where my family's from, we don't put the celery and the bell pepper in most of the dishes with the roux, you know, where the Holy Trinity's used. I use onion, onion, green onion, and garlic. Now, if you are the type that likes to use the true Holy Trinity, the celery and bell pepper, you put that right in. It's okay. It's all a matter of taste. Everybody's way is the right way. Okay, that's what I always say. Just put it in with your onions and let it cook down in your roux, just like I am with my onions. So I'm just going to cook these until they are tender. All right, our onions are pretty much done. I'm going to put in some tomato paste. Like I said, this is pretty much like my etouffee recipe. My etouffee recipe, I just put 1.5 tablespoons of, if I can get that out of there, 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. For this, I'm putting 2 tablespoons because I do want it to be thicker. Some crawfish pie is runny, and that's fine. It tastes good too, but I like mine to hold up a little better. So I've got my tomato paste in there, and I'm just gonna let that cook a few minutes. When you first put it in, it's like a real bright red color. After it's cooked a little bit, it'll start getting like a dark orangey color, and it just smells a certain way. Some of that like acidic tomato smell will go away. So we're gonna cook that a few minutes. I can't see the time on my stove because I've got my oven preheating, but let's see, hold on. So it's 12:18. We'll see if I can time it and tell you, if I remember to time it. So I'm just gonna let this cook a little bit. I just wanted to show you what I was talking about. It turns from a bright red tomato paste color to kind of orangey color. Okay, so once again, I thought I'd press record, and I did not. I cooked my tomato paste and with my onions for about 5 minutes till it turned that color. I grated in with a little microplane 4 cloves of garlic. You don't have to use that much garlic. You can use no garlic. It's your taste preference. You can chop it or use the pre-chopped in the jar. I grate mine because it's quicker and easier, and for my hands especially, because my hands give me problems sometimes. But even on good days, it's still easier to do it like that. So I've just got that stirred in, and I'm just gonna let that garlic cook for just a few minutes. All right, so whoops. All right, so I've got my crawfish that I drained. I always drain it to get all that juice out of there, but I just dropped it in there. All right, so now, and I just dropped a few crawfish. That's okay. It'll be all right. All right, so I'm going to pour my liquid, the crawfish fat that comes in the bag, into here. If you are using crawfish from a crawfish boil, you're going to need to add some liquid. I'm guessing that's about 3/4 of a cup. So yeah, you'll have to add you some liquid if it's crawfish from a crawfish boil. So I'm going to pour my stuff in here now. All right, we got that in there. I'm also going to add 1/4 of a cup of water because I want this to cook just a little bit, but it is very thick. And I don't want it to stick or burn, but I do want it to cook a little bit just to give time for the flavors to, you know, meld together and all that. All right, I'm going to turn my heat down to low, okay? In my regular etouffee recipe, I add 3/4 of a cup of liquid. After a while, I'm gonna add a cup of cream, so it is gonna get thinner. So I'm gonna cover this and let this cook on low for 15 minutes. Doesn't have to be very long, just long enough to get the, you know, the flavors all time to get together. Oh yeah. I gotta put my seasoning in. I always forget to do the seasoning when I'm videoing. All right, so I'm using Captain Kobe's Cajun Cooking. I think I will post the link for his website in the description. He's a fireman from Lafayette. His seasoning is awesome. I've used it in place of Tony's pretty much now. All right, we're gonna add a little salt, some onion powder, some garlic powder. Now you season how you want. I like my stuff pretty seasoned. And also, we're going to put some black pepper in there. All right. Going to give that a stir. And see, it is like a paste, okay? It's very pasty, but that's okay. It's going to thin out. All right. I'm going to cover this and let it finish cooking for another 13 minutes. All right, I also almost forgot the secret ingredient to my etouffee is just plain yellow mustard. Not much, just a little squirt. I don't know, I'm guessing maybe a teaspoon or so. I don't put as much in this as I do my regular etouffee. So yeah, now that I've got that in there, now I'm going to cover it and let it finish cooking on low. I'm sorry, I have so much going on. I'm trying to hurry up and get it done before my child gets out of school, because I promised him I would try my hardest to be done with all this so I could just play with him. But anyways, I'm gonna let this finish cooking. All right, got our crawfish in there. There was a little bit of crawfish just left in that bowl. I couldn't waste it. All right, got our crawfish in there. Okay, I'll turn my heat off. And I'm going to pour in 1 cup of heavy cream. All right, got our cream in there. See, it's still pretty thick. I'm going to give it a taste. And the reason I turned my heat off and didn't continue cooking, the reason I turned my heat off and didn't continue cooking those crawfish is because we're about to bake it, okay? And I don't want overcooked crawfish. I want them to still be, you know, not falling apart and mushy or rubbery or anything like that. So I'm going to give it a taste. That's so good. Oh, it's so good. Let me see. You know what it needs? This is totally optional. But when I'm cooking etouffee, unless it's for just a group of grown-ups that all like spicy stuff, I usually don't put Tabasco in my stuff until it's, you know, in my bowl. But I'm going to put a few shots of Tabasco in there. So I think that's what it needs. Now you put whatever seasoning, like I said, you season it how you want. When you taste it at this stage, it's pretty much going to, you know, that's the flavor it's going to have when it's baked. All we're going to add to it at this point is some egg yolks. So let me taste. Yeah, it's the same spoon I just used, but it's just my family again, okay? Yep, that did it. That's what it needed. There's a little Tabasco. All right, I'm gonna set this to the side, and we're gonna go make our dough. All right, so we're gonna make our dough. It's just my cream cheese dough. I've posted it before. I made little apple ham pies. I make meat pies with it. I use it for a lot of stuff. It's my favorite pie dough. It's very easy to it comes together super quick. It's very easy to work with, even if you're not a pie maker and if you're scared of making pie dough and working with dough. Give this a try because it's very easy to make. It's quick and it's just super easy to work with. Anyways, we're going to start by 4 ounces of cream cheese, room temperature cream cheese. Let's see. A stick of unsalted softened butter, and 1/4 cup of heavy cream. All right, now we're just going to mix this together. I've got my whisk on right now, my whisk attachment. In a minute, we'll switch to the dough hook or paddle attachment. I can't remember. Anyways, I'm gonna mix this together with my whisk attachment right now. Alright, so that didn't take very long at all. Literally just make sure that it was mixed together. You don't have to beat it till fluffy or anything like that. It just takes like a minute or so. Now I'm going to combine 1½ cups of flour, all-purpose flour, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just whisk that together. Now my regular, just plain cream cheese dough, this is all that goes into it. But making crawfish pie, and there's a few other things too, I like to mix in a little grated, like finely shredded cheese. Today I'm going to be using Colby Jack, because that's all I have. I wanted to use smoked Gouda, but I did not have enough for it. So in just a second I'm going to grate or, shred some Colby Jack cheese. Alright, I got my paddle attachment on. I'm going to see if that's going to work. If not, then I'll switch to my dough hook. I'm just going to add this a little bit at a time until it starts to come together. Oh my Lord. Okay, so once again, I thought I recorded and I didn't. So we'll say all this over again. Alright? Alright, so I didn't have to use my dough hook. Paddle attachment worked. It's been a while since I made this, and I can't always remember which attachments go with which dough. But right before you start doing it, get all your flour in there, it'll get all crumbly and it looks like it's not going to come together, and then just all of a sudden you'll get this. It'll come together and look like pie dough, okay? But now I'm going to grate some cheese. I've got Colby Jack because I didn't have enough smoked Gouda. I know some people are staunchly against using already shredded prepackaged cheese. I am not for certain things, but for this, I do think it works better to do it yourself, so it doesn't have that coating on the outside. It just works better in the dough, I think. So I'm just gonna grate this cheese. All right, so I grated way too much cheese, way more than I needed, but that's okay. We'll use it for something else. So I'm just gonna put a half a cup of the cheese, shredded cheese in there, and we're just gonna mix that in. All right, so here's our dough. See, it comes together really quickly. You don't have to knead it anymore or anything like that. I'm just going to put it in some saran wrap and refrigerate it. I like to refrigerate it about 30 minutes. That way, you know, it gets more solid and easier to roll out. So yeah, that's it. There's not a whole lot to it, but it's super good. Now, I usually cut this into like thirds. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to cut it into half. Because I want my pie dough to be pretty thick for the crawfish pie because, you know, it's pretty heavy filling and I want it to hold up. I want it to hold up to all that crawfish and flavor and stuff. So I'm just going to put them in little balls and roll them up and refrigerate them for 30 minutes. I'm going to roll out my dough now. I didn't say it earlier, but I cut it into half. I made one piece smaller than the other. The bigger piece is what I'm going to put in the bottom of my pan. So I'm going to roll it out first. And I'm using a springform pan. I think they come out prettier. But you can use just a regular pie pan. It's going to be a deeper pie. So I sprayed it with a little bit of Baker's Joy, just a little nonstick spray. It shouldn't stick because of all the fat in the dough, but just to be careful because I'm scared to death of it getting stuck in there. I did spray it with a little bit of Baker's Joy. So now I'm going to take my bigger ball and I'm just going to knead it just a little bit just so it's easier for me to roll out. You don't have to do it a whole lot because of all that fat in there. It does start heating up pretty quick. So I'm just going to squish it a little bit just to make it easier to work with, a little bit easier. I did leave it in the refrigerator longer than 30 minutes because I had to go get Booger. I did not get finished before I had to go get my little boy. So it's a little harder than it would be if I would have left it just 30 minutes. I think I left it, it was there about an hour. So, all right, so after I've got it to where it's easier to work with, I'm gonna roll it back into a ball and I'm gonna go ahead and flatten it out a little bit just to get it going. Try to keep it in a circle. I'm going to take part of this too, cut off a little piece of this I'm just going to make one hand pie just to show y'all how that you can make little, you know, hand crawfish pies with it. So I got my surface dusted here. I like to just lightly pat both sides before I start working with it. Flour my pan. And I'm just going to roll this out into a circle. All right, well, once again, I did not push the button. Thought I had recorded it, so I took my nice piece of dough out of my pan. I'm going to try this again. Hope that I didn't, I got a few little spots, so I hope my pie doesn't bust right there. So I'm just going to roll this up on here. I rolled it out big enough for my pan. Just to make sure it comes up the sides. Just going to roll it up on my rolling pin. And I'm going to get that unstuck. And then I'm going to just roll it across my pan here. Okay? And to keep it from tearing, I'm just going to lift the edges and let it fall into that pan. I don't want to force it too much. I want to make sure it's even too. So I got my dough all in there. Set it right here for right now. All right. Now, I've got 3 egg yolks at room temperature. I'm just whisking them together. Now, most of the time I don't think of it beforehand enough to let my eggs sit out to come to room temperature. And so if you're like me and you forgot to let them come to room temperature, just put them in a little bowl of water, lukewarm water, not too hot or it'll cook, you know, it'll start cooking them. But warm enough to let them come to maybe not quite room temperature, but at least not freezing cold, right? So I'm going to pour my yolk into here. Now, if you need to taste this, you need to taste it before now, just to be safe, okay? But I have already tasted mine and made sure it had enough seasoning and everything. And y'all, I'm sorry, I know I have a ton of dishes, but I have been cooking like 20 different things and filming nonstop. It seems like a week now. All right. Okay. I'm going to take a little piece, this other one, just to roll it into, to make a little hand pie. Show y'all how I make hand pies, okay? Again, I'm just gonna, I probably don't even need this much, but be all right. Roll this out into a little circle. It's bigger than I wanted it. I knew that was too much. It'll be okay. And again, this pie dough is probably not gonna stick because it's got so much, all the fat in it, but just because I'm scared to death of something sticking, I am going to spray it. Okay. Put this on here. Let me get a good spoon here. Okay. Put a little bit of that in the center. Try not to put too much so it doesn't, I don't want it to bust, but, oh, I just dropped it on there. But I am horrible about putting too much filling in the little hand pies and then busting, but that's okay. All right, now I'm just gonna wet my finger, okay, and run it along the edges. We're gonna fold this up, pinch it together. A little bit fell out of that side, but that's okay. I'm just going to take a fork and go around the edge just like you would a meat pie and just seal it together. Okay, in a minute I'm going to brush it with a little bit of butter. I'm going to eat this crawfish that fell right there. In a minute I'm going to brush it with a little bit of butter when I brush the top of that. Okay, so now I'm just going to fill up my crust with my filling. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm just folding these loose edges down and kind of creating a little lip because it'll stick up a little higher. I'll try to hold it up and show it to you in a minute. Just folding this down, creating that little lip because I like that little lip to stick up. I just think it looks prettier when it comes out of the pan. Here. Okay. So see, I mean it's not even, but see I just folded it down and then took my finger, so here it is, and just pressed it up against the side to make like a little lip, okay? Now I'm gonna roll out my other piece of dough and put it on top. All right, got that rolled out. Now I'm just gonna set my pie pan on here and I'm gonna press down to make an indentation. And then I'm gonna cut right inside that indentation. Again, I forgot to press the record button. I think I'm hitting it and it's not like registering it. I took my little piece that I cut out and just laid it down inside there, kind of pressed it down. And now I'm going to cut some little slits in the middle. I'm not sure what design I want, probably just plain. So I'm just going to cut some little slits. All right, so I just did some just little plain little slits. That's all I'm going to do. Now I'm going to put it in a 350 degree oven. All right, well, I have stuff all over me, but it's okay. Here's our little hand pie. It's still very hot. I baked it for 25 minutes. Woo. So I can't eat it yet, but here it is. That's what it came out like. I bet it's really good. The bigger pie is still in the oven. I'm not sure how long it's going to cook, but I'll let you know when I find out. All right, so I'm definitely covered in stuff. But our pie is done. I baked it for 40 minutes. I'm going to let it cool on a rack for 20 minutes before I take it out of the springform pan. I just want to make sure that it's nice and solid and it didn't fall all over the place. So I'll be back in about 20 minutes. All right, y'all. Well, I'll let it cool for 20 minutes, and I'm about to take it out of here. I hope it comes out. So I love springform pans, but they make me nervous sometimes. So I'm just gonna open it in case you don't know how a springform pan works. Ta-da! There it is. There's our little crawfish pie. And I'm gonna cut it and taste it. I mean, I know that my dough work on the top is not that great. It's not beautiful, but I promise it's going to taste good. Now, you do not have to do it in a springform pan, and you don't have to do it with the double crust on top. I love this cream cheese dough. I love it. It's so good. I usually don't like pie dough. I hate pie dough, actually, but this pie dough recipe is delicious. So, I like the double crust. You could just do it in a regular pie pan without a crust on top, but if you do that, then this is going to be enough for the dough will be enough for 2 pies. So you would want just a half a recipe of the cream cheese dough if you're going to not do the double crust and you're going to do it in a regular pie pan. But anyways, now we're going to cut it. All right, so let's take a bite of this. I'll be glad to take a bite of it. That almost made me cuss. That right there is good. If you have access to crawfish, if you like crawfish, and you've never made anything else of mine before, please make this. It is unbelievable. Oh my gosh, so good. Oh my god, it's so good. That crust is so good. You could probably just roll that crust out and brush it with butter and bake it and eat it just like that. You could use pre-made pie crust if you want to. The filling is good. Of course, it's good too. But that crust makes all the difference in the world. But please, please, if you've never tried anything else of mine, please do yourself a favor and try this. It is amazing. But as you can see, I have a sink full of dishes. I have no dishwasher, so I better get started washing dishes. But yeah, crawfish season is here, so I'm sure I'll have plenty more crawfish recipes for y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.